it could turn into a real quick con for you if you don't have that foundational conversation with them. It's like, this is the plan. This is what we're working towards.
Your succession documents should be part of your annual review. Like, this should be an ongoing recheck. Is everybody still dialed in? Because people grow in and out of desires or things that they want to do.
There's a common thread across all of these.
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're digging into internal succession. And on the cuff, it sounds really simple, doesn't it? You pass your business to someone on your team or maybe a family member and you're just done. It feels familiar, it feels safe. It usually involves people that you already know and trust and your clients know and trust. But that's exactly what can actually make it a dangerous transition if you are not clear, prepared, or honest for it. So today we're going to talk about what is internal succession, what are the options that kind of fall under that umbrella, and what are the real pros and cons. So let's get into it. Tyson, let's just start at the top. What counts as an internal succession?
I think, what counts as an internal succession?
Yeah.
I think an internal succession, I think is the ideal that everybody sets out for, but doesn't necessarily take the time to really actually implement or build over time, especially in the later years of your career. But what counts as an internal succession is that you've created someone or someones who can basically take over the expertise that you, the founder, have in running this business that then can serve, most importantly, the needs and the relationships of these clients that have placed their trust in you. And a success is that transition happens over time where it naturally shifts, that the clients gravitate towards these successors to take over their financial service needs.
Yeah. So it can be a team member, it could be a family member. And I think we'll talk about this a little bit more about merging with a same custodial team. So it's not selling to an outside buyer or an aggregator. So at its core, internal succession just means a business is staying in the family. Doesn't have to literally be family, but that can be a version of it. So it generally means you're handing this business off to someone who's already inside of your practice and someone who's already working within your ecosystem.
Yeah, and in a lot of scenarios, it's also trying to do it where it is not the client's not affected, or the client doesn't have to agree to it. The client,
Good point.
things don't have to be repapered often. There may be some fee forms and things over time, but generally speaking, an internal succession within the same custodian, within the same team, is a non-client approved event.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's kind of focusing around maintaining that same relationship. So if you've been laying the groundwork over time, there might not even be a big change from the client end because that person's already been there, that trust has already been built, the client already knows who they are. Um, and that's something that really is helpful. Like you said, it's friction free. It's kind of a natural handoff. But they might not be ready or willing to kind of take that on. So we're going to kind of get into those dynamics in a minute. But before we go there, I kind of want to break it down just a little bit further for you listening. So Tyson, walk us through the different paths that actually fall under an internal succession. So let's start with the team member. Like, who would that be? And how does that happen?
Yeah, it's either someone that you're going to need to hire onto the team, or ideally you already have on the team that has grown into the different roles that, if you are listening to this and you are the founding partner and it is your business that you're turning over or exiting from, it's realizing what are the roles that you have for team members that need to take over for the administrivia of running the business, the compliance, the HR, the bill pays, those types of things that you may or may not be doing already. It is the internal team that you need to be looking at or grooming or hiring that's going to help with the portfolio management, the financial planning things that go into the role. And then, and these may be a combination of one person, or there may be three people or many people, but then there's also who's the one that's going to be sitting in front of the client, having the conversation with the client, caring for the client, doing the client meetings and the relational work of the clients. Because a lot of you listening to this either have worn all three hats or are wearing multiple hats. And part of an internal succession is finding out when and who will be taking these things over and what are you doing to grow them into the team and make that transition happen. And do they want to buy it? Do they internal succession also isn't just the doing, it's okay, are they willing? Do they have the risk tolerance? Do they have the wiring of entrepreneurship to even want to take this over?
Is there an opportunity for, to put in an equity option for them to buy it over time? Is that something we should be thinking about with these team member successions?
A lot of scenarios, you, the owner, are now holding the paper or holding the debt and being paid over time. So you are taking a risk that the business is going to succeed without you while you get paid out.
Mhm.
There's combinations usually of all the above. So it's often not that advisor, seller, owner is going to carry all of that.
Mhm.
There are ways to bring in either bank financing where it's just a straight loan that now the other team members or the business itself is going to carry,
Mhm.
and or there are private equity investors or there are companies out there that will take a minority stake in the business to basically the profits of that minority stake to
Yeah.
lessen the burden of and bring in some of the accountability of running the business.
Yeah. And so that's something that we've talked about in previous episodes is you might already have them pegged as the person to take over, but if you are not laying that foundation or having those conversations about what that's going to look like someday, you might think it's a pro because you trust them, you think they can take over, they know the clients, they know the flow of the business, you've even mentored them. But if you never had that conversation with that internal team member about that succession and you're planning on that, it could turn into a real quick con for you if you don't have that foundational conversation with them. It's like, this is the plan. This is what we're working towards. Because at the end of the day, then you're going to be left without a solution that you were banking on for years.
Well, and we had that. We had that in 2020 when we first started putting together a succession plan where, two other individuals internally in the team were effectively their option was they each got to buy half.
Mm,
And they didn't really like that, but they kinda understood it because if I wasn't here, the whole thing needed to be bought, it wasn't piecing it up, and by about 2024, we started realizing that they didn't want to buy or be forced to buy half, they only really wanted to buy some of the things that they were working on, which left a substantial portion to some other people, and we just had to rethink it. So part of this internal succession is to realize, when are you exiting? Because you need a succession plan no matter what, a catastrophic plan. Your succession documents should be part of your annual review. Like, this should be an ongoing, like, recheck. Is everybody still dialed in? Because people grow in and out of desires or things that they want to do. And what I wanted to do 5 or 10 years ago isn't necessarily what I want to do the next 5 years. We've talked to advisors that haven't even told their successor solution team member that that's the team member.
yeah.
And we've seen examples where, and there's more often examples where, oh, wait, that person doesn't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But have those conversations.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this right now and you're nodding your head up and down, you're like, this might be me. I've got the junior advisor and I no idea how to structure this handoff. Go back and check out last week's episode with Nick Arellano. If you missed that episode, cue it up after this one. He made a great point about how alignment isn't enough. It's important, but not enough. You need accountability, you need the legal clarity, and you need a plan in place. And so that episode is a solid blueprint for you if you're thinking about selling to someone on your team. So Tyson, let's shift the conversation over to family member succession because it's a classic example. We've seen it so many times in the years I've been working with you. Maybe my son or my daughter or my spouse who's younger than me wants to take over or I have another relative. So it happens. It's very possible that you are sitting in that position if you're listening to this. Talk a little bit about the pros of having a family member sit in that succession seat.
Yeah, I mean, the pros are it feels right, right? It feels like it's staying in the family because it is staying in the family. It feels like you have more control as the parent over the child, and so it feels less like letting go, right? Even if you're not going to be the owner anymore, it's still in the family, and it's been done successfully,
Oh, yeah.
but there are a lot of potholes to that one, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be a beautiful thing, but there's also a lot of different stress that might continue to live on, ex especially around expectations, and if there's not a lot of clarity, and we always say the holidays can feel weird at a certain point if the firm isn't growing or payments stop showing up or anything, so talk a little bit about the cons and kind of some of the things we'd encourage you to do if you're in that seat.
One is if you have more than one child, are you you started getting into how do you is it fair or equal or is it not? Is it how do you do that financially? Because the from a tax standpoint, the benefit of an internal succession to a family member is you might wait until you're dead for them to actually transition the ownership and the tax consequence of selling something that you maybe not have to, and so on and so forth. The cons are, they're your child, so are you letting them get away with some things that you would not normally let them get away with or let another employee get away with
Mm,
because they're your kid? And, can you fire the kid? Can you hold the kid accountable? At the same time, the con is at the child effectively, especially if they're taking over, becomes the parent in the business, and the parent doesn't necessarily wanna deal with the child, and so
mhm.
do they really end up running it or owning it, or can they do some things differently? On the pro side, one of the other things about family members is, you're creating a you have the opportunity to create a multi-generational firm, and so I wanna be here to make sure my clients' kids and grandkids are cared for by our firm, and so a logical thought is my kids are gonna be taking care of your kids and your grandkids. That's a that feels right to the
Yeah, the legacy
relationships
piece
with
is
yeah,
huge.
yeah, and yet a con of of a family member is, are they the best person to run the firm? Are do they really have I have my wife and I, same 2 people, created 3 very different kids. Um, and depending on which kid wants to come in the business and do the business, is it really what they wanted?
Mhm.
I've seen examples where the family member was brought in and it was maybe the default. It was maybe they didn't do well other places or they never explored other things. I had my first partnership that I was in when I started my career, and he had happened to have his daughter in the business. And when I realized, and she was, at the time she was probably in her late 30s, and I was in my early 20s, and I kept realizing she wasn't happy. Like,
Mm,
the job didn't motivate her, and she was supposed to take the whole thing over, and I even had conversations with her about it, and it's not what she wanted to do.
yeah.
But she felt stuck because out of college, she came into the family business because that's what dad needed, and it just wasn't a good fit.
Mhm.
So, there are definitely pros and cons to the family member option. The other con to the family member option is your team, if you have one, and many of you do, are they going to follow the leadership of the child? Right, 'cause, a lot of times, if you're bringing in a child, that's someone that's most likely 2 decades or more younger than you are. You've had maybe team members with you longer than you've had, the child definitely in the business, but are they going to take over that leadership and stick around and respect and honor the owner, if it's the child?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to that. It can't, the same way we were talking about with your junior advisor who's been working with you for the last 10 years, you cannot make the assumption that the people you think are going to take over your practice are ready, willing, and able to do it. They have to be set. You have to have some clear definitions of what those success metrics need to be like. They need to be able to pay for it. You need to have equity structures built into place, and you need to have the team and the support in place to actually put that next person there, especially that next person. They've got to be equipped and ready to do it. So you don't want to make your life when you run into your clients in the grocery store about your junior advisor who took over to be an awkward situation. And you also don't want that around the Thanksgiving table when there's failed expectations or misalignment around the success of your business. It's a huge thing to consider. It's not easy. None of it's easy. So, Tyson, the third one I really kind of want to talk through, it's a little bit different, but it is definitely part of the internal succession conversation. And so it doesn't get a lot of time, I think, is if you merge your team with another one at your current custodian.
I think it's something definitely to explore, but it's basically a lot of times you have a relationship with somebody else in the custodian that you have in the community that you have that maybe has built out a team. Maybe they're younger, and it is just an easy solution because, again, when it's the same custodian, it's just a lot of less headache to the client and the
Mm,
comfort of the change of any of these internal successions is if the custodian is staying the same and the clients are comfortable with how they log in and see their statements and where the money is actually sitting. And if that's not changing, that's a big part of, I think, some comfort to the client of okay, it's just here's a successing advisor, but it's at the same firm that the clients are used to getting everything. The account numbers don't change, those types of things. Um, in the pros are that the acquirer in this case is also familiar with the same technology of how to do the trades, run the business. A lot of the tech stacks of the custodians are used by the same advisors across different locations. And so bringing somebody on or using an internal or seeking a financial advisor within the same community of the custodian brings a lot of knowledge around the day-to-day functionality of how things need to get done that either you're training up in your team as that successor, or if you're going externally, that may come with entirely new technology and new custodians, those type of things. The cons of it is that it's a different team, so you're going to often have different values, different cultures, different ways of doing things, especially different egos. The internal succession, when you're dealing with the family member, especially, or the team that you internally within your own team, is there is a honor and an ego and a respect, not ego in a bad sense necessarily, of who you are as the founding partner and owner of the firm, that even if you're doing an internal succession with another custodian, some of that gets challenged when you're turning it over to another team and another business owner who also has an ego and wants to be honored and wants to be respected. And one becomes subservient to the other in how these transactions happen. So I think that's another one of the cons that you don't have if it's a family member or if it's internal to your team, because I've learned the hard way a couple times of how important the identity of the founding partner is while they're still in the business, working in the business. And it is better for the advisor that's acquiring or being merged with internally in the same custodian to know that and to change as little as possible while that senior advisor, that founding partner, that founding owner is still in the business. When they've retired away, you then can earn the right to pick that mantle up. Otherwise, I don't think it works really well if you're button heads.
yeah, very true. So if you're listening to this and it's you and an assistant or two, a pro of this for you might be you can leverage a larger team and their infrastructure to kind of help step in and fill in some of those spaces that you weren't able to do, but you always had the heart to do for your clients. So it's some scalability without losing your identity right away as you're transitioning into that next stage of what your succession plan will look like, because then you don't have the headaches of what maybe a bigger team might have, but then you're making that transition easy for you, maybe any of the few team members you have that you're leaving behind, but you've got some familiarity in that transition because it is a huge unknown. But there's a lot of things that you still need to consider when it comes to selling to another team within the same custodian. So, but if you're kind of keeping those expectations unknown and there's some structure there for you, I think that this is a good option for people to consider. So, we're going to kind of high level this. So, there's three main internal succession paths. You can sell it to a team member, you can sell it to a family member, or you can merge with another team at your same custodial platform. Like we said, all of these have pros. None of them are simple, and none of this is going to be risk free for you. But there's a common thread across all of these. You have to have a plan, You have to have some clarity and you need some structure to help avoid the conflict for you and your clients and the legacy that you have built. Tyson, any final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thought is, when you're going through these decisions, I want you to stop thinking about what needs to stay the same and ask yourself, what how are the clients gonna be better off? Are the clients gonna be better off because the team member that's being groomed for this position or the family member that's being groomed for this position is going to make the improvements that you haven't been willing to make? Because quite frankly, especially as we get towards the end of our careers, we tend to rinse and repeat and keep doing the same things, and we might be missing out on some of the technology enhancements, some of the communication enhancements, some of the ways clients want to be serviced in the future, some of the enhancements that maybe need to be happening in the portfolio, that we don't want to deal with that change, but maybe we also know we probably should be, or the clients would be better off in the next decade if somebody was doing that. And so when you're thinking about that, and then again, that's where sometimes that other team may have some of those things that you're not doing that they can help you then implement and do. But as you're going through, it's really boiling down to, if you're not going to be sitting at the desk doing the job, making a difference in the clients' lives, who can come on and even do it better than you? And if you can identify what those things are and then who you think can do it better than you might have the candidate for that internal succession.
That's a great question for you listening to think through. Who can do it better than you? It's not a dig on what you've been doing, but your goal is always put your client's best interest first. And if you're going to continue that after you are no longer the first person they call, that's a great perspective to have. So, thank you everyone for listening today. And be sure to join us next week. We're talking with Dean Smith from Wealth Enhancement Group about what they're looking for when acquiring practices, what advisors get wrong in the negotiation process, and what you need to have in place before you approach a firm like WEG. So we'll be back soon with more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.